What's going on YouTube? West Hobbies RC. So today we are back with the Trex 600 Nitro rebuild. So all the parts came in the mail, been waiting on a few of them. We have the blades, torque tube, we have push rod support, or tail supports. We have the original push rod, boom supports. We have a new tail fin, new other fin with the aluminum mount, just to upgrade, get rid of the plastic. We got a set of my favorite Rototech 96mm ultimate tail blades. Honestly, these are the best tail blades for any 550, 600 size helicopter. I love these blades. And then we got some torque tube bearings because there is no getting the old torque tube and bearings out of the old boom. So I have a couple of these sets on the shelf. I like to run 2 bearings in my torque tubes on 550, 600s, and I even think I got 3 in my 760. We have some aluminum canopy mounts that I had to get rid of the plastic ones because they stripped out in the crash when the canopy broke. We have some new 700X skids because we are changing the scheme up on this helicopter, so we're getting rid of the yellow skids. We're going with the black tilted skids, matching more of the new canopy style that we got coming. We got some rear torque tube gears, front torque tube gears. We got some different size balls, 2.5mm. We got some 760 connecting rods out of my 760 parts because I'm going to be, just like I did on my 550, I'm going to be changing these link ends to 2.5mm balls and the bigger ends to help support, and hopefully they don't pop off again because we don't want that. We also have a new arm for the blade grip that got bent. So everything else looks good. We got the fuel tank pulled out of it already, just cleaning it up. We're going to clean it all up. I want to polish the muffler up, get rid of some of those scratches. Go through it, clean it all up, pull the torque tube boom block out. We already have the new boom just sitting on there because I was hanging it on the shelf while I was waiting for parts. We are waiting on the new Servo Horns still, but they should be here today. We have to replace all 3 cyclic and throttle because it does have a crack on the end of the rod of the Servo Horn, so we're going to replace them all. I got a whole couple sets coming. So we're going to get to work. This is going to be a 1-part video. I'm not going to go into depth of anything, just kind of updates as I go. So let me get started tearing this thing apart and let's get started on the rebuild. All right, so we went ahead and replaced this arm that was bent, re-Loctited everything back into place. So I've been trying to figure out what went wrong here. So this is a gimbal swash plate. I put this on there many years ago and it has a lot more movement than a regular swash plate. But I did just notice something. So I have the original Trex 600 swash plate here. And I was looking, and this will focus. There is a mark right there. Okay, there's a mark there. And the swash plate's gonna go here. And now I can't get this side to duplicate or hit. If you notice, there is room. But I have a feeling, because we were in a pirouette, so we were spinning, and I have a feeling that this link hit the side of that swash plate as it came around, which popped it off, which will explain why this arm was bent and why you heard the blade fluttering in the wind before it exploded. So we're going to ditch this swash plate. We're going to go back to the stock swash plate. We're going to lose a little bit of movement, but that's all right. We're going to throw the stock swash plate back on, and we're still going to change the ends and the balls to the Trex 700, 760 ends and balls just for it, because this swash plate has a ton more room. Nothing's going to hit, so we're going to throw that swash plate on and be done. So on the Trex 600 boom block, once you pull, you're going to have 2 screws, 2 screws, 2 screws. So you have 6 on each side to pull the block out. There's also going to be 2. Now, these 4 screws were Phillips, these 4, and then these 2 were 2.5mm Allens. Now, these is 2 little tiny screws in here that are 1.5mm driver, and they're 2 little screws that hold right in at the bearing. We're going to drop that one. And then there's another one right here. Try to get this. Okay, now that you got those 2 screws out, you can go ahead and separate the boom block, which is just about pulling these 2 halves apart. So what I do is I just grab a small flathead screwdriver and I just go around it carefully, twist, carefully twist until I get it opened up. There's 2 locking pins front and back, or alignment pins, and there's on every screw there's going to be 6 alignment pins. Make sure you have all bolts out, and then just keep working your driver until you get it apart far enough that you can grab both sides and pull. So it'll look like this once you open it up. Now remember, so this is going to be the top of the boom block. This is the bottom. Your gear is going to be, this is the bottom gear that touches the tail drive gear. And this is the top of the umbrella gear. Now you're going to have this little box that sits down in here like this. Okay, so it's going to sit in here one way, and it's going to sit forward basically like that. So those 2 little screws that you pulled out are going to go on here, which is what locks this casing together. So now that we got this apart, we can quickly, so we remember which way stuff goes, we can grab our first umbrella gear and pull it out. It can be tight, so there we go, we got it out. Grab our new umbrella gear, and we know it's going to sit down in like this, so we'll just leave it there for now so we remember which way it goes, and then of course swap your bearings over. And then now let's work on getting this apart. Okay, so we got the case apart. Just like taking the boom block apart, it just separates really nicely. So now these bearings can be a pain. So we're gonna pop the case apart or pop this out of the bottom case. So we're gonna set the case aside like the way it goes back together. So now these bearings can honestly be a pain. Not gonna lie. So get the first one off. It always comes off easy. Now keep them separated because I'm pretty sure they're 2 different sizes, because if you look, you'll notice there's a lip step up here. So I don't know if they're 2 different sizes, but also this is a good time to feel your bearings. These bearings feel really, really smooth. Also feel your bearings in here. These are really smooth, but if they don't feel smooth, replace them. So now we're gonna try to get this bearing off. And this is the one that can be a pain. Sometimes they slip right off, and this one's gonna slip right off. So look at that. Now this gear is still good. So I will save this gear because it is still good. The other gear is trash, but this one is good. So now when you're putting the new bearings on, sometimes you can put a little bit of grease. Sometimes you don't need it. So let's see if this one, nope, this one slid right into place. I made a liar out of myself. These are becoming really easy to put on. I've had some of them that take impossible to get them apart. I mean, it is literally impossible. So now you're gonna slide them into here and align this bearing until it drops down. And it's gonna snap into place, and then you're gonna take your other side. Now you can put a little bit of grease in here if you want to. You don't need to. You can put a little bit of oil on your bearings. Not needed. So now you're gonna take your case, you're gonna pop it back together, take your 1.5 millimeter driver, and you can go ahead and insert these screws into here and lock this case side together, because now we are done with this part of the block, and then we can put this part of the block back into the actual boom block. And now not all of the 600s and 700s are like this. Some of them do not have a separate block for the actual main torque tube gear. Some of them are all integrated into the boom block. So now we are going to set this guy back into here. It should snap into place like this, and then you should be able to rotate these gears and it should be smooth. That feels good. I would like it a little looser, but that's gonna have to be where it is. There's no shims on this setup, so, and some of them have shims in here to shim this gear in and out. But now this is together, you can go ahead and slide your case together and your boom block assembly is done. All right, so we got the black 550 700X skids on. Give it that nice tilt forward. It looks so much better. We got the fuel tank put back in. I checked it for leaks because it was leaking when it was on the shelf and I couldn't figure out where it's coming from. I haven't figured it out yet, but I will. But the tank itself held pressure all night long, so I know it's not a tank leak. I'm gonna go to my local hobby shop to get some more fuel line. I want to replace the exhaust line. This is all new. I did get a new clamp because a little tab broke off, so it doesn't lock and unlock like it should. So I got a new clamp coming. This is a new filter that we put on when we put the engine in. I'm gonna see if I can find some yellow fuel line to dress up these push rods, but we got the aluminum canopy post in. We got the tail boom block back in with the new red gears. We have the original 600 swash plate put back on, the new 760X balls and end links. Everything is smooth, no binding, no hitting. Main shaft and feathering shaft is still perfectly straight, which is very surprising. We have the new arm put on. So this part of the helicopter is finished up. Now we're going to move on to the tail casing. So we replaced the grips with the new aluminum ones that I had, but the shaft is bent. So, oh yeah, you could tell it there. It's bent. So we got a new gear set here. We're going to throw a new gear set in. The original fin ended up breaking off, so I'm actually going to save this, and I found the other part, and I'm going to glue it back together and copy this trace this out so I can put it into my laser so I could cut my own carbon tail fins, because you can't get this style anymore. So we had to go with the new 600XN style, which looks good, but I do like the original style. So at least I can have the original style if I want it, and I can also trace this and cut my own carbon fiber tail fins. And I'm going to trace the other fin as well, so that way I can have a template, so if I buy some carbon plates, I can make my own fins. But I'm going to get to pulling this apart, and we'll get that gear set. So working on the tail case here, if you can see, it is in two parts because I had to cut the shaft off with a cutoff wheel, which I'll go and clean all this up, of course. But because this shaft was bent so bad, I could not get it out, and it was getting stuck on the slider. So hopefully now I can put this up in a couple pieces of wood and tap the shaft out this way. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to get it out now, but it was bent here in two places, so it was bent back and up, and then it was also bent here up. So it was bent in three spots, so the only way to get it out was to cut it out. So now I'm going to try to get this shaft out of here and get this disassembled, clean it up, and then we'll be back to reassemble. We got the tail casing all pulled apart, and we got it all cleaned up. So these bearings here, I just looked through all my bearings, and unfortunately I don't have any that are 10 by 4 by 5. So 10 millimeters by 4 millimeter, 10 millimeter around, 4 millimeters thick, 5 millimeter opening. And these bearings do have a tiny bit of grit in them. They're not the smoothest. I don't know if you can hear it, but they're not the smoothest. So I need to order bearings, but I'm gonna go ahead and put it back together, and then as soon as the bearings get here, it'll be super easy to pull this back apart and change bearings. So this umbrella gear here is a little tricky. So you can do it two ways. You can try to stick a flathead in here and kind of pry up, but it doesn't work. So what I do is I take a flathead, insert it into the boom, and basically push, and sometimes you can tap the gear out, and it will come out, and you just work this gear completely out of the bearings, and then you just keep tapping it. And you can take a hammer. Sometimes it is a pain, but you can take a hammer and try to get the gear to come all the way out. Tapping this out, I got it almost all the way out. There it goes. Gear is all the way out. Screwdriver is stuck in there, but that's okay. We'll grab a pair of Chantel locks, vice grips, whatever we can get a hold of, and we'll pull that gear. Now that we got that old umbrella gear out, I take a little bit of grease, and I mean just a little bit on the inside of the bearing where we are going to be pushing the gear through. You don't need a lot of grease, and you don't have to do this, but I have found that it does help the gears slide. See, and then push. This gear can be a pain, but you're going to want to push it into place. Don't use anything to pry on the gear because you need it to stay in there, and you want to make sure it gets in there straight. So let's make sure that we are straight, which we're not. And you just work this into place until it lines up. All right, we got the gear, and you just have to carefully push it to where it lines in the back. Make sure it spins freely and straight. So now we know that this is going to go on the helicopter this way, so we know that where this bolt is on this particular unit is going to be the side that your blades and slider goes on. So we're going to get a screw ready with Loctite, which we already did. We are going to Loctite the front plate on first. Get this all snugged down and secured. Grab your next screw with Loctite. Get it ready. This is a 2mm driver. Because this is an old nitro casing, that it is going to be different than the newer style casings, but the concept is the same. The way the gears go together, all that is the same. It is just your casing might look a little different and you might have a different style. So now we have our front plate on. So we're going to take our back umbrella gear. We are going to slide it in the bearing to where it lines up. Grab the back half of your casing, drop it into the gear, spin it, make sure it still feels good. Grab yourself another screw, Loctite of course, and then snug these down. Okay, and then once you get past that, you are going to have a little support bracket that goes across. Once you get these tightened down, and then grab your little support bracket across. Grab your Loctite, of course. I am using 243 because I know I've said it before, but again, it helps if the screws aren't 100% clean. Loctite will still work. 242 has to be very specific to clean screws. 243 will still do its job. So now our main casing is pretty much back together, and I like to take a little bit of grease and grease my gears. A lot of people don't like to do that because it is susceptible to dirt, but I'm okay with that. I like mine to be greased up. So now I'm going to feel the gears first. They are a little noisy, but all torque tube gears are a little noisy at first. And then basically what I do is I take a little bit of grease and I take my finger and push it into the gear and spin. Push it in a little bit more, push it into the gear and spin it around, and then basically just wipe the excess off. Go around the whole gear just like this, and then you know you got a good gear coverage. And yes, it does throw a little bit of grease, but I'd rather have that than I take a little bit of grease and put it on this shaft to help with sliding. So now it is time to just go ahead and slide the tail grip assembly on, and we are done with the tail. Sliding your tail hub on is super easy, but the important part is, if you notice, I've touched on this in multiple videos, but there's a flat spot on this shaft, and you can see the black right there. That is on the flat spot. If it's shiny, it's not. So make sure that when you tighten your grub screw down, that it is on the flat spot, and you can feel it when it hits the flat spot. It flattens out. If it's on the shaft itself, it'll want to walk. It'll want to rotate. So that's just super important. Make sure that is on the flat spot. Tighten it down. Make sure you got good Loctite. Wipe the excess off, and we are good to move on to the next one. So we went ahead and bolted the new fin on. No modifications needed. The XN fin fits perfectly. Same bolt holes. We got the aluminum tail hub on that I put on in the first video of the 600 when we put the new engine in this thing. So now everything is butter smooth. I mean, it is so smooth. Greasing the gears have quieted them up a little bit. So now the gear is very smooth, no noise. We got the Rototech 96mm tail blades. Honestly, my favorite blade are the Rototechs, especially tail blades. They make a world of difference on your helicopter. If you have a 550, 600 size T-Rex, any helicopter really, but the 550 T-Rex, I noticed the biggest difference. I went through multiple tail servos, different tail setups, and the tail felt great. It didn't feel great, it felt terrible. I tried some of these Rototech 96 because the same exact blades I run on the 550, and tail performance is out of this world. Made me a believer. Now I run them on almost all my helicopters. I was going to run them on the mains, but I wanted to try the nitro blades. Of course, we got the Goblin Raw sitting in the back. So we're still waiting on servo horns, but now we are going to get the tail boom, which is back here, and torque tube out, and we are going to get the torque tube put in the boom, and then get the boom put on the helicopter. All right, so we're gonna work on the torque tube. Now I've touched on this in the 550 DFC rebuild video when the torque tube snapped. So on the typical 550, 600 torque tube because the 550 uses the 600 tail boom. The newer version V3 uses the same tail boom, same tail casing. It's all the same from the 550 600. The only difference is, of course, the length of the main blades. So we have the 600 tail boom. Now you get one bearing included in the boom. This is how the boom comes out of the package. I'm sorry, the torque tube comes out of the package. You get one bearing. So I take this bearing off and I put this bearing aside. So now we have a brand new set here, which is part number. You can see that. Will come with 2 little rubber and 2 brand new bearings. This is what you get. Now the reasoning is, if you can take your old bearing out of your boom, save it because you can use it. Unfortunately, from the crash, the boom is completely mangled. I can probably cut it apart and get the old little rubber stop and bearing out of it, which I will do before I toss the boom, just to have it as backup. But I have like 4 or 5 of these packages on the shelf, because the thing I like to do is I like to have 2 bearings on my 600 torque tubes and bigger. In my 760, I put 3. I like to have that added. I don't like putting one, basically in the middle, because then you can get a little bit of walk and vibration on this end and this end. So what we're gonna do is on the 600, I'm gonna go take one bearing. I'm gonna slide it from the end here about 8 inches, and I'm gonna take and mark it right there at 8 inches. Take some medium CA. I like Bob Smith CA. You can use whatever CA you like. Slide it back. I'm gonna put a tiny bit of CA on the boom. Make it to 8 inches. Slowly push and spin the bearing into the 8-inch point. Let it, and make sure you spin it and you don't use too much so you don't glue the bearing, the inside of the bearing. Okay, so now we're done with that. We're gonna take a little bit of kicker just to speed the process up. We're going to kick it. And now we have one bearing glued to the torque tube. So now we're gonna grab our next bearing. We're gonna line our torque tube up. We're gonna go 8 inches in again. So we're gonna push this bearing on, and we're gonna go to the 8-inch mark, which we are going to be right in between, right in the 600 logo. So now we're going to put a little bit of CA on the boom, or the torque tube. I'm sorry, I keep calling it a boom. And again, we're just going to carefully rotate it into place and hold. Spinning slowly and carefully so we can get the entire inside of the bearing coated. Now take your kicker, kick it, kick it. Now our bearings are glued into the torque tube. So now they are free, and they are free. So now what we're gonna do is I take a little bit of this silicone oil. I use the 3-in-1 silicone oil, and I like to put a little bit on the inside here. And then go ahead, slide it over. And the reason why you're gluing the bearing in place is so that way you can slide the rubber over top of it and the bearing does not move back and forth on the actual torque tube itself. Now grab the next one. So now we got both of our bearings glued onto the torque tube. We are ready to insert it into the boom. So now I just like to put the 600 logo, the Align logo, to the tail casing. So we're gonna slide it through the boom this way. So we're gonna grab our boom, and I take a little bit of oil and I just put it inside the boom, let it run through. It should drip out the other end. And then I put a little bit of oil on the actual rubber here. It's gonna make a mess, but that's okay. We can clean it up when we are done. So now go ahead, slide your oil out of the way. Now remember, the slot is going to go to the front of the helicopter, so we are just going to insert and carefully push this into place. Once you get it started, it should slide right through. Next one, do the same thing. That's what the oil is for. And now you should have your boom and your torque tube assembly. So now I recommend putting the back tail casing on now, tightening that down, and then adjust your torque tube length from there. So we got the boom put on, locked down. Now this is an older 600, so it doesn't have the locking bolt that usually is on the new boom blocks. The 550, 600 new blocks have a locking bolt to go through here to make sure the boom can't pull out This block doesn't have it. I might add it later on, but we got the new boom supports put into place. We got the new fin and aluminum mount, new tail fin put into place, of course. So now the back half of the helicopter is on. Torque tube is spinning and tail blades are going the right way. So now we have the guides. And if you noticed, again, older 600, the new ones have a carbon push rod to go from here to here, and you have one clamp in the middle. But these have push rod guides. So you have two of them. So what I like to do is I like to position the back one about halfway between your two fins, and then I like to position the front one about halfway from the end of the block and the Align logo. So you're going to take yourself little zip ties, so how they move around, and what you're going to do is it's a pain, but you're going to slide this zip tie underneath, pull it through, and then cut it off. So you just need this little bit of the plastic as a spacer. That'll lock this into place to stop it from sliding around. You could use something like a Dabbit E6000, anything like that, but you just use the zip tie and it will work just fine. So I'm going to get those put into there, and then we're going to move on to pulling this muffler off. I want to polish it up, clean it up. We did get one new dent in it from the crash, but we'll just polish it, clean it, and then as soon as we get the new servo horns, we can rebuild the servos, and this helicopter will be ready to fly. So we got the pipe pulled off. This is just an old Align 50 high-performance muffler. This pipe has been on this helicopter for years and years and years. So we're going to give it some love. We're going to clean it up, we're going to polish it up, make it look good again, and get it thrown back on the helicopter. Got some alcohol coming out of it with the fuel that I used to clean the inside out, but let's get it polished up and get it looking brand new. So we got the muffler polished up. Just a quick polish, just something to get rid of a lot of the scratches, just to give it a nice, fresh, clean look. We epoxied, I've gone over this before, but I use epoxy as a gasket between the actual muffler and the engine. A little bit of 30-minute epoxy, mix it up. Nice little gasket. When you bolt it down, it does two things. It, number one, seals the muffler to the engine. Number two, it acts like a thread locker where it will stop muffler screws from vibrating out. And if you ever got to get the muffler back off, it will come off really easily. So that is my personal tip. If you're running nitro, anything nitro or gas, I always epoxy my mufflers on. So now we got the little piece of zip tie. So now our guides are secure. So now our tail movement is nice and smooth. So now we are waiting on the servo horns. We can rebuild the servos, make sure the swash plate is level, go through the setup, throw the new set of blades on, and go give this thing a test flight. All right, so after waiting almost 2 weeks, I finally got the servo horns. I had to order 2 packages, as you can see, but I finally got them. So we need the end horns, the longer double-sided horns. The reason I had to order 2 packages is because you only get 2 horns per tree, and these are $15 a set. So I had to spend $30 to get 3 horns, but it is what it is. I don't like plastic horns on any helicopter that has a direct connect swash plate. So servo straight to the swash plate. I do not like plastic horns on anything bigger than a 500 because it's a lot of pressure, and I've had horns crack and break in flight before. I've seen stress crack in horns. Actually, if you look at this horn here, you can see, I don't even know if I can focus this, but you can see where it started to stress crack. That wasn't from the crash. You can tell the difference. See how fresh and white that crack is? You see how dark that crack is? That means it's been broken for a while. So these are things that you got to look for. So it's a good thing we're upgrading. You can always tell a break, just so you guys know, if it's a fresh break, it'll be white. If it's an old break or crack, it'll be dark. That's how you know if you have a fresh break or an old break. So I went ahead, got one of the new servo horns out. These are thicker, stronger, a lot beefier than these old ones. So we got the beefier, extra strong horns. We had going to the inside of the holes here. I'll cut the rest of these off, sand them smooth. But I'm going to go ahead and get all 3 servo horns done and a new horn for the throttle. And we'll be back to see how it all looks. All right, so we got the servo horns cut down, trimmed up, sanded round. We didn't need that long horn sticking out. Went through, recentered all the servos, leveled the swash plate, checked all of our pitches. Everything is the way it should be. Everything is moving smoothly again. So now the 600 Nitro is completely back together and ready to fly. The only thing that I noticed is the satellite was blinking, and when I was moving the cable, it was starting to, the light was going in and out. So I don't know if this cable got damaged in the crash or what happened, but I'm going to grab another cable. This is a brand new one. I just have to shorten it, and I'm going to replace the cable because I don't want to chance it. So I will toss this cable in the garbage. I don't know if there's a break in it, whatever, but we got to get the satellite hooked back up. But that's it. And next video you guys see will be of this helicopter flying. So I'm going to end this video off here. Thank you guys so much for watching the rebuild. Thank you for watching the whole crash series, everything on this helicopter. Next video will be made in flight. Let's get this thing flying again. We got the 600 nitro blades on. We're gonna fly with the ugly broken up canopy until we get the new one, but as soon as we get the new one, we'll get that thrown on here. We got the 5-degree tilted skids, which looks really good. The Rototech tail blades, 96 millimeters, look awesome. All new gearing, new fins. Everything's done the way it should be. So there you guys go. We are ready to fly again. So thank you so much for watching this video. Take care, give this video a like, subscribe, and have a great day.